Happy opening day. Happy, hopeful first game of the season. Hopeful. What's on everybody's mind? Throw it open to questions to start. I got no preamble or nothing. Got no pearls of wisdom.
Are you a little surprised? The team that's going to be on the field today is the one you thought you were going to have, say, 3 or 4 months ago when the rebuilding process began?
I think we've made no secret that, as I've said way too many times, if we had our druthers, we would have made some other moves over the course of the offseason. At the same time, we've known throughout this process that it wasn't going to be our impatience or lack of patience or desire to accelerate things that was going to dictate the pace of the move. So we were fully comfortable with the fact that this was going to be the group. Over the last few months, it became a little more apparent that this was very likely going to be the group. And as I stated at the time when we made the Sale and Eaton trades, we realized that this is a process. We realized that we're closer to the start of this process than we are the end. And opening day is just one milestone in that process, with another one coming in a few months when we get closer to the trade deadline. So as I sit here today, regardless of the specific players that may be in that clubhouse today, I'm confident that Ricky and the coaching staff has this group extremely well prepared, extremely well focused. The energy is good, the environment is strong, and I know there are 25 guys and they're going to do everything in their powers to win a ball game today, assuming we play.
Have you had any veterans, either challenge might be too strong, but ask you about, question the direction, because they're veterans and they want to win now?
Absolutely, and I wouldn't say that anyone's questioned the direction. I think the direction's pretty clear and transparent. At the same time, I've had a couple of individual one-on-one conversations with guys who have sought me out and wanting to know a little more specifics about their status, some of whom have expressed a very strong desire to remain here, to be part of this, and how optimistic they are and how happy they are to be a White Sox, and they hope that continues. Same time, they know it's a business. They know what's going on around them, and they appreciate the candor. And again, anytime there's questions, more often than not you hear from the agent, but certainly when we were down in spring training, I heard more directly from players since we were all in the same vicinity.
When you look at this opening day roster, is there any way, Rick, to predict how many of these guys on today's opening day roster will be here when the process is finished?
It's a tough question. It's a very fair one, but it's a darn near impossible one to answer. I mean, you certainly can look at the commitment we made to Tim Anderson, how we and others project Carlos Rodon's career going forward and say, well, there are 2 pieces that you would count on in being part of the next championship White Sox club. At the same time, as I alluded to, you've got guys who are in the last year of their contract who have expressed to us a strong desire to remain here. Guys who have value because of their clubhouse presence or that they may bring offensively or defensively, who you don't want to rule out as being part of that next club. So as much as I think the right answer is to artfully sidestep it, I don't think I could give you the right answer anyway, given that, again, there are people who, although they have less control left on their contract, have expressed a desire to be part of this in the future.
How do you decide on them then? I mean, Tim Anderson obviously makes sense. He's a young core guy. Carlos Rodon, the same thing. But I mean, for a guy who might have Frazier as an example, I'm not saying are you going to sign Frazier, but I mean, just are you going to sign Frazier? But he's got 1 year left.
That's not what you're answering.
he's got 1 year. I mean, how do you look at the veterans and kind of assess how they fit going forward?
It's on a case-by-case basis. I think we've made no secret about where we are in this process. We're in the early parts, which is basically a talent accumulation phase of this rebuilding. Once that talent accumulation is done, you look around what you have and where remaining holes may be, and you look at whether you have answers internally, or you need to go out into the free agent market, or you need to go out and make trades with some of the players you've even acquired to address those other needs. So again, it's simply too early to project how any individual is going to fit into this thing once it's done, because we still got work to do.
How difficult is it to stay the course patience-wise? You keep saying you want to be patient, as asking the fans to do that, but essentially you're like fans and you want to see this thing happen sooner than later.
No, that's very fair, in that fundamentally all of us in the front office started off as fans, so we have that same default mindset about wanting things to be done quickly, but wanting it also to be done right. The trick is that we're at least privy to where conversations have been on certain players and can sleep well at night knowing that there really hasn't been anything presented to us that we've turned down that we look back in retrospect and could possibly kick ourselves for turning down. It's just, these aren't exact formulas. There's no clear cut, this is the proper value, but we really haven't been presented with anything in recent months that has even been close to feeling like this is something we should do. So again, we have to be strong and keep that sort of long-term focus. That's where the fruit of these labors will pay off, is because of patience and waiting until the time is right to make these transactions.
Rick, when you look at the different levels that you and Rick, you and Kenny and Jerry have to deal with, off-season being one, spring training being two, and now the angst of the regular season and those assets being out there every day. What are some of those things like as you guys go through this?
Well, if I think I understand the question, it's about risk and assessing the risk and the value of things. We certainly now, as we have entered into the season, you are carrying a little bit different amount of risk on certain players that conceivably you could have moved and cashed in for whatever value they had at the time. Again, nothing presented itself that made it feel like, well, there's going to be some added risk once the season starts, so therefore we better move now. It just wasn't that close to getting anything done, and as we've had our conversations over the last few months, we've been prepared to enter the season. Again, it would have been marvelous, as I said at the Eaton press conference in DC. It would have been great if we had 4 more of those things over the successive days where we continued this process and it made it clear to everyone not only what we were trying to do, but that we were able to accomplish it quickly. It just isn't reality. This is an extended process. We're going to be tested at points. We're going to be tested not just from a patient standpoint, but also from a competitive standpoint. We all, whether they're in uniform or in the front office or White Sox fans or whatever, we want to win. We want any individual game we're watching, we're going to want to win that ball game. At the same time, those might be stretches where those are few and far between. So we have to remain vigilant about what we're trying to accomplish for the long term and stick to that plan, even though at times, as you point out, at different junctures in this plan, there's different risk factors involved, and certainly once the season starts, that is a different factor.
How tough is it on the 3 of you to stay in what Jerry always calls lockstep, because of the fact that there is so many moving parts to this?
I don't think staying in lockstep hasn't been a challenge at all. That's been a non-issue ever since we committed to this direction. Everyone's been great, from not just the baseball department or ownership level, but throughout the organization. People get it. They know what lays ahead of us, and they're excited for the future, and they're braced for what the present may hold.
Rick,
guys
what
like
were the
what he's-
highlights of spring training for you?
Well, I'll give you a general answer and then something a little more specific. I think generally, we're in the process of not just changing the personnel, but changing our environment and changing our culture. And I think that Ricky and his staff did a marvelous job from day one of camp, making it clear what we were about as a club, how we wanted to play the game, and communicating that to players and holding them accountable throughout camp if we met those expectations or they didn't meet those expectations. That's going to be essential as we go forward. Again, wins and losses at the major league level is the easiest thing to judge us on. It's how we all judge ourselves. But there are going to need to be certain process and environmental improvements around here over the coming years, so that when the talent is ready, it's seamless in terms of turning that into a championship club. I'm thrilled with what we've seen over the last 2 months or so since we got to spring training in terms of what Ricky and the coaches have done on that side of the coin. It's tough to quantify, but you felt it. Those of you who are down in our camp this spring, you saw it, you felt it, you heard it from the players, and it's real. Now we're going to be tested over the next 6+ months to continue that. Individually, there were certain players who, because of the WBC, they got a little greater opportunity, or because of injuries got a little greater opportunity. It's great to see Jacob May, homegrown kid, make the most of his opportunity to force his way onto this opening day roster and see what he can make of a chance to run out there basically every day in center field for a couple of months. I think some other guys like Nicky Delmonico, Danny Hayes had nice camps, put themselves on the map, and it was good to see some of our drafted players like Zach Collins and Zach Birdie perform on a big stage.